you guys obviously know that I've got the biggest crush on you, Kelly.
I saw it firsthand in Athens. I've never seen Fanie become starstruck like he was when he met Hugh Kelly. He literally turned around and said, "I don't know if I'm ready for this." It was
does
magical.
my hair look okay?
You just turned red right now.
Man. Oh, dude.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Coffee Made Me Do It podcast. My name is Dario Scilipoti and I will be hosting most, if not all of these episodes. Today I'm joined by Luhle and Fanie, two very important parts of the Bluebird Coffee Roastery team. And we're going to be talking about barista competitions. I am super excited for this one. And I think setting off the right competitive sentiment or conversation, you guys are nicknamed Magic and Bird. I had to think about that for a moment. It just shows that I'm not the basketball fan. You guys are. Where did that come? How did that come about?
Well, I think in the preparation for the 2022 Barista Championship semi-finals, which happened in June, was it June or July, whichever one it was, we had gotten these denim jackets, and I think even predating that, you and Katie decided that we needed nicknames in the roastery, and we settled on Bird and Magic. And I'm Bird and Luhle is Magic. So Luhle's got number 32 painted on his custom painted denim jacket, and I've got the number 33, which is Larry Bird's number, painted on mine. And I do think it's quite apt, man. Honestly, I'm passing the torch over to the next generation over here. Setting us up for this competition season where Luhle is under the so professional tutelage of myself and yourself, with all of our years of experience of competition together, a full total of 1 year. Seasoned, man. Seasoned like a piece of biltong, bro.
That's amazing. So we'll come back to experience and competition, that type of thing. But I mean, you joke we got a year, but we got a bit more experience than that.
Yeah, so I think we've been tasting a bit of good coffee, and for myself, I've been competing since 2017. I'm very happy that I found barista competitions, it's an absolutely awesome, platform for professionals to speak about what they're passionate about and share a little bit of their knowledge and skill set on a stage that's a bit different than your average cafe. I'm
really excited to get into that. But before we do, a lot of our listeners won't know your guys' backgrounds and what you do. Luhle, how did you come into coffee brew? First of all, you're 20 years old. Okay, very, very young coffee professional. And I met you through one of our wholesale partners who you were working for at the time as a barista. And I was very, very just impressed by the way you handled yourself, and you were straight out of school, just ready to delve into this incredible world of coffee. But that interest must have come from somewhere. How did it all start for you?
Sure. Dude, like you just mentioned, 20. It was pretty weird because this morning we shot a video with Katie, and I got to say that, and it's not something I get to say most of the time, especially in the work environment, and it's always weird because it just feels like I've been working in coffee, I've been around the space for quite a long time, but I haven't. How I got into coffee, I was in school, matric, which is the last year of school in South Africa, for high school, 2020, which is only 3 years ago. And during my last couple of exams of that year, I just stumbled upon an article about specialty coffee. I went down this rabbit hole for the rest of the night instead of studying for my exam the next day. Funny enough, we also spoke about this other day. I ended up on the Bluebird page that night. And I remember being on the transparency page specifically, and was just like, this is very cool. I need to know about specialty coffee. And my first thought was, what's the nearest place to go to? And there was a coffee roastery nearby in Hillcrest, in fact, that I've visited, called Lineage, and spoke to the owner. His name is Craig. Had a really good chat and just said I want to spend some time in your space before I go to varsity the next year during those holidays. And what was meant to be 14 days has been close to 3 years now in the coffee industry, because after that I worked as a barista in a cafe called Velvet Coffee, incredible cafe in the Kloof area, and worked there for 9 months, which is during that time where we met. Dario and I met and spoke about the possibility of joining Bluebird, And yeah, it all happened very quickly and very organically. And I think, yeah, we're in a good space now. And my current role, a new role, somewhat of a dual role between being head of the training center, the new training center we just launched, and also head of wholesale. We work with a lot of cafes, including the guys like Velvet and many other cafes around the country and internationally as well.
That's really cool. And I think that the evolution for you has been really quick. You know, you joined the team as a barista, but with the intention of not remaining a barista. That was always the goal was to... I remember having a call with you, and it's really interesting that we're sitting here recording a podcast, because in that call when you were still at Velvet, during that call we spoke about so many things, but the one was, you know, your passion for sharing what you've learned and having a platform to do that. And we spoke about the fact that in South Africa, to this day, I'm a firm believer that Bluebird is the company where you're going to have that platform, where you're going to have that opportunity, because we aren't ever settling for where we are. We're always pushing to the next, you know, the next sort of like stage, and launching a podcast was something we actually spoke about back then. So it's super cool to be sitting here. I knew I wanted to do this, and it's great to have this platform now. So yeah, so you joined the team as a barista, quickly, you know, got to the point where we were launching our new cafe, and you took a lead role in that space. And you've now passed the torch to Claudia, who's running the cafe, and we'll have her on in a future podcast episode. And now doing amazing work, man. So it's great to have you on the team and have you here today. Fans, dude, your story coming into coffee. I know we covered this a little bit in episode 1, but it seems like all of us kind of arrived in coffee by mistake.
Yeah, dude, it definitely does seem like that's an overarching trend for most people in the coffee industry. You do kind of accidentally end up in this career. I think for me, you know, trying to pay off my studies and just make ends meet at that stage of my life, I was working in a cafe, and I was very fortunate to, in that context, be exposed to barista competitions by co-workers, and then in the following few years I had the privilege to work with a few people who competed themselves, and that's how I got into coffee. It's just like kind of, you know, it was the easiest, most accessible job to me at that stage, and I thought baristas looked cool, you know. Like...
That's really interesting. So did competition pretty early on in your coffee career draw you into the industry, or did you kind of decide to compete or become interested in competition once firmly entrenched in the industry?
So I'd say it's a little bit of both. I think I got pushed to compete once I was still pretty early in my career. I actually spent a bit of time working an event with a man called Wayne Burrows, who at that stage was still working for his own coffee consulting firm, and he was doing an event in Sandton, and I was working with him. I had then briefly seen coffee competitions. I just visited the 2016 National Barista Championships, and I'd seen coffee competitions for the first time. And I've always been intrigued by competition. I've always been a competitive person by nature. And Wayne just told me, listen, dude, I think you should compete, and I think I can see a future for you. Wayne, as a former All-African barista champ himself, and a very renowned barista competitor within the competition sphere in South Africa. It meant a lot coming from him, and it had a lasting impact. And like I said, I was working alongside a few very renowned competition baristas at that time, who also just helped me and aided me into my first competition, and I've just been going from there, man.
I know that you're a very competitive person, like from a sporting background, and kind of like every area of your life there seems to be like a bit of a competitive edge or a competitive drive, whether it's, as I say, sports, but also I can see it in the roastery even, like your systems are dialed to the point where it's like you're competing with yourself.
100%.
Like filling and sealing bags. Watching you do that is pretty entertaining. Like you've got a flow now where you're running both the wave fill machine and the heat sealer at the same time. I struggle to do one at a time, and you've got both going at the same time absolutely seamlessly. So
yeah, it's funny because you say that I'm competing with myself. I actually know exactly how long it takes me on average to fill what would end up being a 10.5 kilo batch into 250 gram bags. I know exactly how many bags that will be, how long that will take me, where I'm losing time, where I can gain time, So I guess that's very true. I think I just have it's something that sits very deep in my core is a love for efficiency, right? And
Efficiency over everything else.
Efficiency over everything, man. Results don't matter, only efficiency does.
Yeah, I can relate on a very deep level. I was actually thinking about this last night. I've just finished a really, really good book called Alone, the story of Brett Archibald, who got lost at sea on a surf trip, and he was in the water in Indonesia for like 28 and a half hours, fighting for his life. Almost got rescued twice, and the boats turned around within 100 meters of him, having not seen him, and then eventually being rescued, with just an incredible story. But I was finishing this book and I just couldn't put it down, and I got to the end, and there are all these like little tidbits at the end of the story where they're giving the names of the crew of each boat, and irrelevant information to me at this point. The story has been told and I've enjoyed it. But it reminded me of this time in my life when I was a kid, getting these like rock climbing magazines that were really expensive. And I felt like getting the best value for money would mean reading every single word, including the names of the copyrights on the photos and the credits at the back of the magazine. I needed to read every word, otherwise I was wasting money. And I think it's that same sort of like, efficient competitive drive.
Yeah, you got to squeeze every last drop out of everything that you can,
Yeah, I think the listeners are probably thinking these oaks are weird. Well, South Africans are competitive, ladies and gentlemen. That's just a part of who we are. Did you grow up with a competitive drive yourself, Luhle? I don't actually know a lot about your competitive background.
I mean, I don't know what my character from time to time shows from a competitiveness point of view, but it depends. It really is more of a context thing. I grew up very competitive academically. I had a very intelligent sister that I was always compared to growing up and always told to follow in her footsteps. And it was all very healthy kind of environment that I was being put in. It was not toxic at all, but I think within me, I always wanted to make it a point to myself that I'm capable in that sense. So I think I've always had a bit of that, but to a limit.
And I know at school you were on the debate team.
Yes.
And you guys competed quite a lot, didn't you?
Yeah. So I competed quite a lot in the debating and public speaking space. It is something I've always had interest in, and I always felt like I could exist in. Which I think would be a very cool segue to go into when it comes to Barista Comp. But that's another space. I think I align it with being, again, academic competitiveness. It's definitely something that I always wanted to excel in. Beat everyone else around.
And beat everyone else around. I mean, there it is. There's the competitive nature. You're right. That is a great segue into barista competitions. I think for a lot of people, certainly a lot of people on the fringe or outside of the coffee industry, when they first hear of this concept of barista competition, it sounds a bit strange. Like, how do you compete at making the best cup of coffee, which is such a subjective thing? For every person who loves, a sweet floral geisha, there are 20 people who absolutely hate it and think that coffee should taste like coffee, which is the comment that I get on a lot of our social media posts. Like, I don't want my coffee to taste like flowers and fruit. I want it to taste like coffee, whatever that is for that person's sort of like frame of reference. But in the world of competition, how is it judged? What is the format and all of that kind of stuff? So to give our viewers a bit of an overview of what a competition looks like, Fans, at the national level and the international level, what is the format of a barista competition and how is it judged? What does it look like from a competitor's point of view?
So, to put it simply, I think the best way to understand the presentation side of the competition, there are a few different facets to barista competitions. You have the technical side, you have the sensory side, so the taste and aroma evaluation, and then you have the presentation side. So the easiest way to understand the presentation side is that you, as a barista, have a 15-minute cap within which you need to serve 4 espressos, 4 milk beverages, and 4 signature beverages to a panel of 4 judges. So that is 1 beverage per course per judge.
I think most people can relate to espresso and milkies. What is the signature beverage?
So the signature beverage is your coffee combined with other ingredients that are non-alcoholic to produce a drink that is representative of the coffee but has an elevated characteristic. So you are using the coffee as the main ingredient to make a cocktail.
Okay.
And you then get scored on how much that coffee cocktail represents the coffee itself and synergizes with the story that you're telling within that 15 minutes. So you are not just presenting the coffees to the judges, you are telling a story about the coffee, about a new idea or a concept, or just about yourself. You really do have a lot of creative freedom from a presentation perspective, as long as you are serving the beverages that you need to within the rules that you need to serve them in. So from a sensory perspective, your coffees themselves, each course is judged in a slightly different criteria, but overarchingly the same. You are judged on the accuracy of your taste descriptors and tactile descriptors. So you're describing the tactility, how the coffee feels in the mouth of the judges, how it tastes to the judges, on the accuracy of how they perceive it versus what you described. And then they also assess their flavor and taste experience, which is, did they enjoy what you made? So from one point of view, it is very objective. Does this taste like grapefruit or does it taste like nachi? Where the taste experience is a bit more subjective, and each judge individually assesses how he is enjoying said cup of coffee. Obviously within reasonable parameters, we do have a bit of preference, but is the coffee balanced? Is it sweet? And do all of the flavors work together as one instead of being, overpoweringly one flavor as opposed to another? And then from a technical perspective, you are assessed on your ability to produce the coffees efficiently, effectively, and in a neat and clean way. So how well do you dose your coffee into your basket? Is it accurate? Do you waste a lot? Do you clean up after yourself? Do you purge and clean your steam wand and your drip tray? That kind of thing. And all of these scores are then combined into a total score sheet, and you are placed into a ranking compared to the other competitors.
Very cool. I think, the nuance of competition is very hard to understand until you see it in person. I've watched a few in-person competitions in South Africa as Bluebird, started to grow, and I was very fascinated with exploring the upper end of quality. But then I had a really cool opportunity to go to the World Barista Champs with Steve Okun, South Africa's current barista champ, in 2021, and he competed in Milan. We had a great coffee for him to use from Geisha Village, and he did really well, and it was great. It was a great experience for me to see what it was all about. And at that moment, I committed myself to the fact that personally and professionally, from the owner of a coffee roastery, I wanted to be involved in competition how I could, not necessarily wanting to compete myself, but in a support role, coffee sourcing and roasting and that type of thing. So there's so many different directions we can go with this conversation, and I think there probably will be a lot of follow-up discussions amongst the three of us around competition and certainly results in the future. We've been prepping really, really hard for the first round of the South African Barista Champ cycle, which is our regional competition, the KwaZulu-Natal, which is our province, regional competition, which was supposed to happen in September. It's now been pushed out, so our prep is kind of not taking a back seat, but we'll definitely be toning down the amount of preparation so we don't burn out before the competition happens. But we're pretty fired up for this year.
Yeah.
Fans, I know you've got a strong goal to make it to World Barista Champs and to become the national champion. And then Luhle, your first ever comp cycle, there's obviously a lot to learn and a lot to achieve in this first year. Let's start with Luhle. I mean, dude, you obviously have the privilege of having been around a full cycle last year with Fans reaching third place at the National Barista Champs. Yep. What are your personal ambitions for this year?
100%, dude. I think it'd be cool to also quickly explain the format of this regionals set or regionals competition that we're going into.
Yeah, it's a bit different to the national competition.
Yes, so it's been revised in some kind of way for the Durban regionals, which is where we will be competing. as Fanie has explained already, the 15-minute format and how that looks like. It's more of like a halved version of that, if that makes sense, taking away the signature beverage. So you still have the milk course and the espresso course to serve, but you're only serving 2 of each course. So 2 milkies, 2 espressos to 2 judges with 1 tech judge. That's essentially the format that we have in a 7-minute time cap. So you have 7 minutes to present and serve these coffees, and in a way present your set.
A lot of people think that a 7-minute set would be easier than a 15-minute set, but I remember reading years ago that it's if you're doing a public speaking event, if you're speaking, it's easy to deliver an hour presentation. It's more difficult to deliver a half an hour presentation. It's almost impossible to do a 5-minute speech. Sure. Because to decide what to put into just a short amount of time is so difficult. Have you found that to be the case with the 7-minute set?
Definitely, dude. I mean, the challenge of writing my first script for my first competition set has been the fact that I've had thoughts that I wanted to share for my set, and a lot of them I go in detail, as you most likely would for a 15-minute format, and have a full set to present and have more detail to share. With the 7-minute format, it's hard to bring in all relevant information that you want to bring in, so I've had to trim a lot, but again, you just have to play the format that you're given and figure out a way to still make a statement that you're looking to make and keep it nice and short, I guess.
So I guess that's the main motivation to make it to nationals, so you can expand on the 7 minutes and
exactly.
do the full 15.
Exactly, get to that point where you can expand more on your point, and we obviously have many channels to do that. But from a personal ambition point of view for this cycle, it's definitely just staying within the rules, not playing it safe by any stretch, but making sure that the mistakes that I would make don't happen. For a first-timer competitor, it's something that I really want to focus on, ensuring that I stay within time, I tick all the boxes that I'm looking to tick for my set. But from a results point of view, I think I've set the ambition of making it to nationals and potentially top 6.
So top 6 would be best case scenario.
It's definitely where I would want to be. Just again, having more time to present, because that means that's past regionals, that's making it to first round of nationals, beyond that semis, beyond that finals of nationals. So the more I can compete within this cycle, the better. That for me is just getting the rounds in, getting more and more prep done as much as possible, to just gain that experience and be around many other seasoned competitors.
In the surf competition world, they talk about making it to finals day.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we want to do. We want to get to the last day and have a chance to compete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Fans, you've stepped into like a bit of a dual role this year, and like, for what it's worth, I'm super proud of the way that you have stepped into this role as a perennial competitor and a very competitive person. It's so easy to become like very introspective and just like, you know, disappear inside yourself in competition prep, but you've been very open and you've done a great job of, I feel, you know, sharing tips and assisting Luhle where you can. Obviously, he's done so much work in preparation, and Katie's done a lot of work as well on, you know, the scripts and that type of stuff with you, Luhle. But Fans, from your perspective, how are you feeling this year, like competing yourself as well as keeping a watchful eye over the young one?
Yeah, dude, it's very cool for me. I think I am obviously in a very fortunate position myself, where I have had a lot of people who have helped me on my journey to become a better barista, both in the day-to-day 9-to-5 kind of context, but also on the competition stage. I have been helped by so many people in a way that they paid it forward, man. They didn't expect anything from me because I really had nothing to offer to all of my mentors, from Vusi and Wayne Burrows at the start of my competition career, through Claire, Chris, and the team where I used to work in Joburg, and now here at Bluebird, where we have had so many people reach out and, without asking for anything, helping just to help. I've received all of that support in my career, and it feels so good to be able to pay it forward myself and pass on that gift that I had received. Because I always say that knowledge is an infinite resource, and we don't empty our cups by filling up somebody else's. And it's always been a goal for me to leave the competition space better than I found it, because I believe that South Africa has a lot of potential on the world stage. And so now being in a position where I am fortunate enough to mentor Luhle and to be in a position where I can help him, I feel incredibly proud to do that. And it's a responsibility that I do not take lightly, to pass on this knowledge to, the next generation, quote unquote, although he's not, he's almost a decade younger than I am. I am a bully after all. But
the 27-year-old old man.
Yeah, exactly, bro. Like my back, my bones, my aching joints.
You went to the 2016 Barista Champs for the first time, and I was like, damn, 2016 was a different world for me.
Yeah. Yeah, my man.
Don't even get started, guys. I was out of school for 11 years already.
Yeah, bro. So for me, going into this competition season, obviously we as a team have ambitions to do incredibly well in our nationals and get to the world stage. And we are working hard towards that. And I'm very, very excited about the opportunity that we have with the coffees that we have access to, and also with the knowledge and resources that we have now afforded ourselves access to with the years of work that we've put in. The opportunity for myself to do well is right there for the taking. And it's awesome to have somebody to mentor along that journey too, and to have an impact on somebody from a very early point in their competition career, not to necessarily not in a controlling kind of way, but more in a helping hand kind of way, because like I said, I've had so many helping hands on my journey. It only feels right to pay it forward myself.
For sure, man. I think that's really cool, and something I talk about with you guys, and anyone I get to speak about business with, or that type of thing, it's for me, it's all about beginning with the end in mind, like starting the journey knowing what you want the finish to look like, at least in general terms. Obviously, as you're climbing the mountain, the higher you get, the more you can see, and your view and perspective will definitely change. But from a competitor standpoint, I think it's quite clear that you guys have personal ambitions, and then from a Bluebird business standpoint, I have from day one understood that competition could be very powerful for us. And what I didn't really understand at the time is what it would do from a coffee perspective, like physical green coffee in the roastery, coffees we get to work with, coffees we get to share with people. And I think we're in a position this year where our special release program, reserve program, whatever you want to call it, the nano lots we get to work with, that side of our business is about to go nuclear. It's like we're in a really cool spot. We just bought a new Stronghold S7X, which is literally on its way from South Korea at the moment. It was collected on Sunday from the factory, and it's going to allow us to roast smaller batches of coffee with one of the most technologically advanced machines on the planet. And we've got all these incredible coffees sitting on the shelf in the roastery waiting to be roasted and shared with people. And if it wasn't for competition, I don't think we'd be pushing this hard into this space. So it's very exciting. I can't wait. One of the things we discuss a lot is what makes a good competition coffee. And I think the reason we have so many coffees in the roastery and so many on the way of a so-called competition standard is because we have been trying to figure out what types of coffees to use at each individual stage of the competition. In South Africa, the feedback that we've had on the coffees we've selected to use, especially at nationals now, was that from the international judge, Nina, the feedback shared was that the coffees would have scored exceptionally well in Europe, which is a bit of a frustrating piece of feedback, but obviously it is a competition, so we need to learn how to play the game locally to get to the international stage. What do you think, Fans, specifically, what do you think the judges in South Africa are looking for from a coffee perspective at the moment? Have you got a clear picture, or are we still trying to figure it out?
I think that there's often times when you speak to competitors, there is this conversation around having cracked the code, which is, I think, very interesting because it's such a blanket statement. It does make it seem like it's very simple to compete and do well. And there definitely is a recipe. So I would say that in the South African space currently, a coffee that is very easily and so let's put it this way, that it is very easily identifiable and characterizable. A coffee that is not too complex, but complex enough to be interesting, with a high sweetness, bold flavor characteristics, lots of texture. I think these coffees inherently, not just locally, but also internationally, will score well. I think once you reach the upper ends of the competition space, the semi-finals and finals at Worlds, you are looking for a coffee with a little bit of nuance and something that is a little bit interesting and a bit more complex. But you need characteristics that you can undeniably describe. Because I always talk about what is the difference between orange and naartjie, right? And if you can describe something as citrus, well, what kind of citrus is it? And you need a coffee that is naartjie and orange blossom and floral honey, right? Not something that could be maybe strawberry, but maybe it's like a grape, and so that kind of thing. I think a very clear flavor profile. But on top of that, I think a very stable coffee is also very important, because unfortunately, as competition baristas, we have basically one opportunity to extract espressos for the judges. You can go back and extract again, but nobody plans to leave themselves a minute of time in case something goes wrong. You use your full 15 minutes and you hope to be as accurate on stage as possible. So a coffee that has a very stable characteristic across the extraction spectrum, something that even if it extracts 2-3 seconds faster or 2-3 seconds slower, will still be tasty and will still be describable within your terms and terminology that you are using. And you then need to know and understand that coffee to such a degree that you can describe it if on the day it extracts a bit faster, a bit slower, or with a slightly lower or higher TDS perhaps.
Super interesting. And I think, our style as a roaster is more focused on our clean coffees.
Yep.
Even the naturals we select, the anaerobics we select every year are generally quite clean, and that just comes down to essentially my personal preference in the coffee like processing space, which is why we work with producers like Pepe and Alejo from Volcan Azul, who produce amazingly clean coffees. Even his warm anaerobics are funky but clean, which is always fascinating to me and is definitely our preference. But this year we've gone a bit wider in our search. We've got some coffees coming from Wilton Benitez. They should be here any day now, essentially. And these are, processed in bioreactors with yeast added to the fermentations, and some very interesting flavors are created. Definitely not infused coffees. And we're trying to I think the whole industry is trying to define what that actually means. And, thermal shock and yeast fermentations sounds so foreign right now, but so did carbonic maceration a few years ago.
Yeah.
But we're not into infused, but we are very open to some interesting fermentation and different techniques. I think it's going to be interesting to see how these coffees perform.
Yeah, for certain. I, for one, am very excited because I think that all of these coffees have their place in the market. And as a professional, whether it be for me personally in anything that I've tackled, whether it be my fitness journey, whether it be my profession, or any hobby that I've engaged in, I believe that being versatile and being well versed in the topic of your interest is the key to being a good professional. It is not how much you know about a specific thing. It is about how broadly your knowledge stretches and how open you are to receiving new information. It is about data collection instead of data sorting and data separation for me.
To just chip in on this topic,
of course.
I think it'd be cool to also talk about how, as baristas, we serve the responsibility of facilitating the interests of the market, so if that makes sense. So as a barista, you're tackling what a customer wants and needs from you, not essentially what I prefer the customer to have. So it's something that we also, I think, as professionals, as a team, that's the reason why we've widened our search in terms of what coffees in the competition scene would look like for us, is that we're playing into a market that is inclusive and brings in everyone else's interests while remaining integral what we believe is true for us. So once again, facilitating what the market and the customer wants, and their interests, and then providing that service to them. So I think it's another perspective to have. And end of the day, we are baristas, and that essentially that is our role. And that's what competition is trying to simulate, if that makes sense.
It's so interesting. So I think over the years of being around competition, I keep hearing people say like, oh, this is a barista competition, and the people winning aren't even working as baristas. This is quite a common topic. And Fans, I know that you said that you wanted to win nationals while you were still working as a barista. Yeah. Sorry, bro, but that has passed.
Ship has sailed.
That ship has sailed. As roastery manager, you still bring a lot of coffee, but that's not your job anymore.
Yeah.
I think my perspective on it has always been that barista, quote unquote barista, is such a broad term, and surely it means someone who makes coffee.
Yeah.
Now, we've just been in Athens at the World Barista Champs and had the privilege to get to know Eric from Germany, the Brewers Cup champion. Eric, never mind not being a professional barista, he doesn't even work in coffee.
Yeah, he's got like a little weekend gig every now and again, right?
Exactly. So he's a full-time student brewing coffee at home. Is he not a barista? Is he not a brewer? He definitely is.
Yeah.
So I think we can kind of like get rid of that little stigma.
Yeah, I think that from my perspective with that question, where people are asked, listen, is this really a barista competition?
Is it relevant? Is it still relevant to the coffee industry? Is what people are asking a lot of the time,
And I think that if you look at innovation, innovation starts at the top and it trickles down, It starts on the fringes and it makes its way towards the norm. And I think that if we take a look back at 2015 or 2015 when Sasha brought carbonic maceration onto the competition stage. When you look back at 2016 when Berg Wu used frozen cups, which was the first rendition of compound chilling. And you look back at varietals like Euhenoides and even things such as Panama geishas that made their way from the competition stage and have now become mainstays in the coffee industry. I think that it is important to have these things happen on the fringes, to have people operating at the peak of what is possible in coffee. Innovation does not happen when you are not on the cutting edge. Innovation doesn't happen in the middle where it's comfortable. Innovation happens on the fringes. Innovation happens where it isn't accessible right now because nobody is trying it, nobody is doing it. And so it makes more sense to me now that the people winning these competitions are in fact not actually baristas, because baristas' main focus in their everyday life is service to the customer. And when you are serving people and you are customer facing, you do not have time to do research and development. You don't have the resources available to invest into trial and error. And so I think that barista competitions are as relevant now, if not more so, than they have always been, because they provide context to new ideas. They provide us with new innovations. If you're looking at Jack Simpson, who brought the vibrating table, which I thought was such an interesting way to distribute coffee, and it takes the idea of a distribution tool and it basically throws it out the window. And if you look at freeze distillation, which Ben Putt brought to the table, I believe in 2016 or 17, these ideas have now become things that we use in our everyday life. Distribution tools. The NCD was a product of the barista competition stage. The autocomb, which is now making its way into cafes around the world, product of the barista competition stage. And all of these experimental fermentations are coffees that were used on stage for the first time and gained prominence.
And it's certainly not unique to coffee. Yeah. I mean, if you look at car innovations, they happen on the professional sports level and then filter down.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. So yeah, I think we, as the South African competition scene grows, we have the benefit of seeing what's happening internationally and learning from countries and competition organizations like boards who are ahead of ours. Favorite set of all time, like international baristas. Luhle, starting with you, bro. Have you got a favorite set?
Favorite set. I have a favorite competitor who consistently gives me his favorite sets.
Who's that?
I think Ben Put. I think over the last competition cycle we just had, there's been an overarching sentiment within the coffee industry of how much Benjamin Put from Canada has contributed into this platform and into this industry from his consistency and innovation in coffee. So I think he consistently produces sets that are super relevant to an everyday barista, but also pushes the boundaries and, like Fanie just said, the higher end of what can possibly happen. Ben Put is definitely up there in my favorites.
I think Ben is an incredible
All-timer.
example for us, and I had the opportunity in Costa Rica earlier this year to spend a day or like a morning with him cupping coffees, and it was so funny because Katie and I were with Alejo and we had to go and fetch Ben and two of his green coffee partners, I suppose, from Apex Coffee from their hotel, and we were like piled into this car together. Like we got very intimate very quickly. There was no space, and the conversation was super cool. Like it was just back and forth a little bit about competition, and Ben was so clear on the fact that he had like 3 more sets he wanted to present. He had like 3 ideas that he still wanted to share with the world, and he was constantly testing. And he made a comment that he was recently in the US working with a group of coffee students, and he was testing on them, but they didn't know. And I think that's like the perennial mindset of the competitor. Like, I'm always working on something. People around me don't have to know that I'm working on it, but I'm always working on it. And I think that's why Ben has become known to be such an innovator in the space and produce some incredible sets. So I back that really, really hard. Fans, for you, like favorite competitor, favorite barista set?
Yeah, man. I think I'm going to cheat a little bit with my answer, and I'm going to mention 2 competitors. You guys obviously know that I've got the biggest crush on you, Kelly.
I saw it firsthand in Athens. I've never seen Fanie become starstruck like he was when he met Hugh Kelly. He literally turned around and said, "I don't know if I'm ready for this." It was
does my hair look okay?
You just turned red right now.
Man. Oh, dude. I have had such, not an obsession, but near to an obsession with you, Kelly, just because of...
Hugh, if you listen to this, he's not dangerous, I promise.
Yeah, bro, don't worry about it. So you Kelly was one of the first competitor sets that I've watched, because I obviously, when I started in competition around about 2016-17, you had just competed at the World Championships, and Australia's coffee scene at that time, everybody was talking about how advanced the coffee scene in Australia is. I went straight to the Australian competitor and watched his set first, and that was Hugh Kelly's set. And I was just blown away by Hugh's ability to communicate a load of information in such a seamless and calm way. He always seemed to know exactly how fast he needed to talk and never rushed, and just executed it perfectly every single time. From the perspective of Hugh Kelly, what I love about his approach to competition is that he's always bringing new innovations, whether it be compound chilling, whether it be the very interesting fermentations that he used with Euchenoides over the last few years, that he developed with the Zor Coffee Excellence Institute. I just think that he is the picture of innovation. He is the picture of excellence in coffee. And I've aspired to model my competition style after what Hugh does, just because I thought that he had such a elegant way of competing. But from a favorite set perspective, I've got to say that Lex Veneker's set in 2000, I believe it was 2016, when the championships were in Amsterdam, which is Lex's hometown. I could be wrong, but he had a set based around different coffee varietals, which, if you know anything about me, I'm very interested in varietal myself. he he brought to the stage Sudan Rume. In this context, it was grown on Granula Esperanza, and he served the judges with fresh brewed filter coffee in between each of his courses before presenting a new varietal to them. And I thought that was such an interesting and super, super incredible way to showcase new coffees, giving the judges the opportunity to taste them in different ways, even though you only get scored on your espressos and your milk beverages. So that set from Lex Veneca, for which he made finals, is definitely up there for me.
Very, very cool. One of the things that's become clear to us recently, especially post Athens World Barista Champs, is that we want Bluebird to be a center for excellence in the competition space, and certainly supporting our own team. At the moment, both of you are competing, and as the team grows and careers evolve, we'll see how that works in the Bluebird space, like who in the Bluebird team will be competing each year, and we'll be there to support. And hopefully Brewers Cup will end up coming to South Africa soon, and we can start participating in that space. But I'm also very excited about supporting baristas outside of our own team, and potentially international baristas and Brewers Cup competitors with coffee and coaching and guidance. We're specking out at the moment a fully spec'd SCA training center, as well as, it's SCA spec. We don't have, in-house SCA trainers at the moment, but we will probably end up hosting like Steve O'Kun and obviously do all our own training work from that center. But it's also going to be spec'd for barista comp prep.
Yeah.
So people could potentially come and stay with us in the Midlands, get some training done, select some coffees.
Yeah.
And we've already got, someone from Germany who may want to work with us for the next world cycle if they get through nationals. How do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about both being a competitor in the team as well as welcoming other competitors from outside of the team, outside of our, team itself, like kind of into the fold and supporting?
I mean, Fanie had the sentiment that he shared earlier regarding how sharing resources and knowledge is something that we always looking to do, and with sharing that knowledge, you're not really at all running out. So I think the more, the better. The more competition cycles we go past, the better competitors we become. The more we share within each other and different perspectives we have, the more we can know as professionals. So I think it's something that we all feel and would love to do, welcoming other competitors within our space and engaging in coffee conversations beyond just a team. So I think it's just another step that Bluebird will make into becoming, again, a roastery that becomes a hub for excellence, a hub for inclusion of everyone in the coffee industry that looks to do great things within the competition scene, within the coffee industry progression scene as well. So yeah, once again, it's definitely something we all would love to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the one knock-on effect of competition has been the trickle-down effect. Like you were talking about this earlier, Fans, about it starting on the competition stage and then making its way down to cafes, and then in our context we have a wholesale program. So like locally, I think that our experience in the competition scene is definitely having a positive impact on our wholesale customers. The coffees we get to buy, even for our wholesale coffees now, we're accessing some amazing coffee that we wouldn't have had access to before because of the producers we're working with in the competition space. And then also, the fact that this exposure on the international platform has opened up opportunities for us to work with international customers. We're actually working on shipping some coffee to a cafe in Kazakhstan at the moment, and I just find that staggering. That we are out here in Howick, South Africa, a very small town in a pretty isolated part of the world from the world of specialty coffee, and yet we're able to compete on the global scale from a coffee supply perspective as well as formal barista comp perspective, which is pretty cool. So God bless social media.
Yeah, for certain, man.
For all the bad, it's very good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that like these being able to participate on an international level for us as a business being able to bridge that gap between South Africa and the rest of the world. We are very isolated here in the middle of the planet here where we are.
But it probably makes this work a bit harder to get exposure.
100%. And I think that we as coffee professionals, we get into coffee because of the coffee, right? And we end up staying for the people, right? And this new international network that we have built only allows us access to more cool people and more interesting coffees and more great conversations, because that is the crux of this incredible thing that we call coffee. It is what brings people together, and it is what it's I always sort of say that a cup of coffee isn't about the cup, it's about the context. And it just gives us so much more opportunity to engage with really, really cool people in really, really cool contexts.
Yeah, I'm very excited about comp. I think that this cycle's going to be a lot of fun, boys. We've got some work to do, and we've got some butts to kick. Fans, we're going to be working with Jordan and Nicole, good friends from Australia and Germany. They live in Berlin. And something that I've absolutely loved, we were talking about the competitive nature of the South African population. Jordan is like super chilled and just wants to love everybody.
Yeah.
But I got a message from him the other day about like how you're going to just smash everybody. I was like, there we go. The South African effect is rubbing off on Jordan. So we'll have to get him on the podcast to talk about that. And
the Care Bear of the coffee industry.
Dive deep. Yeah, absolutely the Care Bear of the coffee industry. We'll dive deep into how the South African competitors are probably going to negatively affect his love the world psyche.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting space. It's an interesting space.
We love you, Jordan and Nicole. You guys are absolute legends.
Yeah.
Guys, did we just record a podcast?
We just recorded a podcast.
I'm very happy to have had you guys here. Thank you for your time. I think we need to go roast some coffee, Fans.
Yeah, dude, it's time to go burn the beans. Ons gaan nou braai.
Cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and a share and a 5-star and whatever else we're supposed to do for podcasts. We're still trying to figure this out and not really too sure ourselves.
Yeah, man, download those episodes. Get those downloads going.
Fanie says that helps, man, so please do it. And we hope you enjoyed this one. Whether you did or not, episode 4 is coming soon. We'll see you later. Ciao.
Cheers, guys.
Nice.